Mortar dirt slid into my mouth as the wounded man's bandage darkened in the ditch. The orders said, "Hold," and the rain made every movement sound like a confession. My superiors wanted presence on the forward edge, even as the hedgerow drew sniper fire to any lifted helmet. I moved one rifle back without permission and waited for the price to arrive in the dark. June 27, 1944. Normandy, north of St. Lo. U.S. ground forces are weeks into the campaign that began on the beaches. Progress has slowed in the enclosed farm country known as the bocage. Hedgerows, sunken lanes, and small fields have broken units into short, violent engagements. The operational requirement is simple on paper and difficult on the ground. Hold the line that has been taken. Prevent infiltration through the gaps between units. Or keep a foothold for the next day's advance. In this terrain, a line is not a clear trench system. It is a series of occupied hedgerows, ditches, and corners. Positions are connected by memory, hand signals, and short runs across exposed ground. Maps show neat boundaries. Fields do not. The focus here is a rifle squad on a hedgerow position, ordered held for 48 hours. Not a famous action with a named hill. A routine holdout that rarely appears in published narratives. A small group's endurance in mud, hunger, and orders. A task that is infantry work in its plainest form. Remain in place. Stay quiet when quiet is required. Fire only when fire matters. Keep the enemy from slipping through. The squad belongs to an infantry platoon that has advanced one hedgerow too far to be comfortable. Yet to their rear are other squads in other hedges, not always visible and not always audible. To their front are German outposts and patrols using the same cover. The day's larger movement has paused while artillery, engineers, and supplies catch up. Until that happens, the infantry must stand where it is. The squad leader is an experienced rifleman assigned responsibility rather than given relief. He is not introduced by name in the records that survive. He is identified by what he must do. He accounts for men. He watches for signs of panic and signs of exhaustion. He reads the ground more than he reads the plan. He carries the same mud as everyone else, but with a heavier ledger in his mind. In the first light, routine begins. Positions are checked without standing up. Heads stay low behind the banked earth and tangled roots. Yet the squad leader crawls along the line, touching shoulders, checking that each man has a sector. A rifle barrel is eased through leaves. A firing slot is widened with a hand, not a shovel, to avoid noise. Someone tries to light a cigarette and stops. The smell carries. The squad leader does not lecture. He takes the cigarette and pockets it. The hedgerow itself is a fortification built by farmers over centuries. Thick earth, interwoven roots, stones, and brush. It can stop a man's body and sometimes stop fragments. It cannot stop heavy rounds. It cannot stop the pressure of concussion when mortar bombs land close. It also blocks sight and creates the problem that defines this kind of fighting. A squad can defend what it can see. Much of the danger is what it cannot. A shallow ditch runs along the base of the hedge. In places it is knee-deep water. In places it is sticky clay. The men's trousers are dark to the thigh and stay that way. Their hands are dirty even after they wipe them. The mud is not a dramatic obstacle. It is constant friction. It makes everything slower. It steals warmth. It ruins small tools. It spoils bread before it can be eaten. At this point in the campaign, hunger is not starvation. It is short meals that do not meet the day's cost. It is missed rations because the route back is under fire. It is the feeling of chewing without satisfaction. A man opens a ration packet and finds it damp. Another counts his remaining candy and saves it without saying why. The squad leader watches hands tremble slightly as a tin is opened. He does not take food from anyone. He adjusts the work so fewer calories are burned on pointless movement. Orders reach the squad through fragments. A runner from the platoon crawls up with a message. Hold this hedge. No withdrawal. Keep contact to the right. Expect resupply after dark. If armor appears on the lane, guide it through the gap. If the enemy probes, break the probe, but conserve ammunition. The squad leader repeats the essentials in short phrases. He does not add commentary. Early signs of limitation show themselves quickly. The field telephone line, if one has been laid, is unreliable when shells cut wire. Portable radios, when present, are affected by terrain and by battery life. Runners disappear into the lanes and return late, or do not return at all. The squad's link to the right is a glimpse of movement through leaves and a shared understanding of where the boundary probably lies. The left link is worse, blocked by a bend and a thick stand of brush. This is a common condition in the bocage. Gaps exist and are not always admitted. A German machine gun opens briefly from somewhere ahead. It is not a full engagement. It is a test. 2 short bursts. Then silence. The rounds cut leaves above the squad's heads. The squad leader does not answer immediately. He waits. He knows that answering too quickly can invite mortar fire. He looks for the real threat behind the sound. Is this a deliberate draw? Is it a patrol revealing its line? Is it a single gunner with orders to keep the hedgerow nervous? A man with an automatic rifle tightens his grip and shifts the muzzle a few inches. The squad leader signals him to hold. Seconds pass. Nothing follows. Then, from farther away, a mortar bomb lands with a heavy thud and a crack that shakes dirt from the hedge. Fragments hiss into branches. The bomb was not close enough to kill, but close enough to teach. The enemy is watching for reaction. The squad's posture settles into what the men learn quickly. Stillness when stillness helps. Movement only when necessary. The squad leader sets a simple pattern. 1 man watches the lane opening. 2 watch the hedge line directly ahead. Another watches the tree line beyond, where shadows shift. A 5th is assigned to listen, because sound often arrives before sight here. The rest dig, not deeply, but enough to lower their bodies. Entrenching tools strike stone and root. The squad leader tells them to stop when the noise becomes sharp. By midday, the sky is low and gray. A light rain begins and ends and begins again. And it does not cool the men so much as it keeps them wet. The squad leader checks the men's feet when he can. Wet feet become blisters. Blisters become infection. In infantry work, a foot problem can remove a rifle from a line as surely as a wound. The squad has no spare socks to speak of. A few men have a second pair already damp in their packs. The squad leader tells them to keep what they have dry by keeping it wrapped in oilcloth if possible. He knows it is an imperfect instruction. The operational problem grows gradually. Resupply does not arrive in the afternoon. Water is low. Ammunition has been used cautiously, but the men carried only what they could. Grenades are counted. A man checks his rifle's chamber without thinking, and is corrected. Noise again. The squad leader is patient but firm. Every metal click feels louder in a hedgerow. Across the fields, the enemy remains mostly unseen. That absence is its own pressure. A visible enemy gives the mind something to measure. An unseen one makes every rustle suspicious. A crow lands, then flaps away, and two men nearly fire. The squad leader prevents it with a hand on a sleeve. Late in the day, a figure appears briefly at a gap between bushes. It might be a German soldier. It might be a branch shaped by wind. In the bocage, confirmation is rare. The squad leader decides to risk one controlled shot from a rifleman who has a clear angle. The shot cracks, then the rifle is lowered. No return fire follows. If the figure was a man, he is either hit, gone, or disciplined enough not to answer. If it was a branch, the squad has paid with a sound that may be recorded by enemy ears. An evening brings a different danger. In this terrain, German patrols often move at dusk and at night. They are experienced in using the hedgerows as covered routes. Infiltration here is not a sweeping maneuver. It is a few men slipping to a corner and then appearing behind a position. The squad leader knows that his hedgerow is part of a chain. If one link goes quiet the wrong way, the chain fails. As light fades, the squad leader assigns listening posts. Two men move forward a few yards, crawling, and settle where they can hear the lane and the hedge base. They are not sent far. The distance is measured in seconds required to pull them back, not in yards on a map. The rest of the squad stays pressed into earth. The first night is not a battle. It is work without sleep. Rain returns and makes the men shiver. They do not light fires. They do not heat anything. They eat cold rations in small mouthfuls. A man tries to chew hard biscuit and stops because it is too loud. He soaks it in his mouth instead, letting it soften. After midnight, a faint metallic scrape carries from the lane. Then a cough, quickly suppressed. The listening posts signal back with a small motion. The squad leader shifts men without speaking. He places two rifles on the most likely crossing point. He tells the automatic rifleman to aim low, because patrols here use ditches. He keeps one man back to watch the rear, because a good patrol will try to draw eyes forward. A shadow moves. The squad waits. Then a second shadow, lower. The squad leader allows the patrol to come close enough that the hedge itself frames it. When the first man reaches a point where he cannot retreat without exposing himself, the squad leader gives a brief signal. Two rifles fire in quick sequence. The automatic rifle adds a short burst. A body drops into the ditch with a splash. Another shadow scrambles back. A brief exchange follows, then silence returns. The squad does not chase. Pursuit across hedgerows is how men die in this country. The squad leader watches for return fire that might be mortars. For several minutes, nothing happens. Then a mortar bomb lands close, sending soil into faces and mouths. A second lands farther down the hedge. The squad compresses into the ditch and waits for the pattern. 4 bombs follow, walking along the hedgerow base. The enemy has marked the sound of rifles. When the mortar fire lifts, the squad leader checks men by touch. One man has a bleeding cut from a fragment in the cheek. Another is dazed, ears ringing. A third has a torn sleeve where a piece of metal passed. No one is killed. The squad stays in place. This is what the orders require, and it also matches the logic of survival. Moving now would mean crossing open ground under unknown observation. The first morning arrives with heavy cloud. The squad is tired and dirty. The squad leader gives short tasks to keep mines from drifting. Clear the firing slots that collapsed. Recheck sectors. Dry the rifle actions as best as possible. A man wipes mud from a bolt with a filthy rag. Another shakes water from a cartridge belt. A few rounds have been dropped in the ditch and are discarded because they may misfire. Each discarded round is felt as a loss. Resupply still has not come. The squad leader sends a runner back at the first safe moment. The runner is not a messenger by trade, yet he is simply a man who is able to move. He crawls away with a note scribbled on damp paper. Need water. Need rifle ammunition. Need grenades. Holding. The squad leader watches him disappear into a lane and does not know if he will return. The operational problem now includes time. The squad was told 48 hours. They have already spent more than half of that with little relief. The larger unit's plans depend on the squad staying. That is the logic of the front. Yet the squad leader sees the reality of the men's bodies. He sees slow reactions. He sees fingers that fumble with simple tasks. He sees the way fear changes into dullness when there is no sleep. Small failures appear. A man shifts his position and exposes his helmet above the hedge line. A shot cracks and chips bark. The man drops quickly, shaken, as the squad leader does not shame him. He adjusts the men's positions so they can see without lifting so high. He uses the hedgerow's own structure to create safer sight lines. He instructs men to look through gaps in roots rather than over the top. Around midday, enemy activity increases. There is more movement at the far hedge. A faint clatter suggests equipment being repositioned. Then a machine gun opens from the left front, longer now, sweeping the hedge line. The squad leader orders the men to stay down. He knows that firing back from poor angles only reveals positions. A few rounds strike the earth bank and throw dirt into eyes. Mortar fire follows quickly, more accurate this time. 2 bombs land near the listening post position from the night. The men had already pulled those posts back, but the pattern is clear. And the enemy is trying to force heads down, then move. A 3rd bomb lands close enough to stun the automatic rifleman. He shakes his head and steadies himself. The squad leader decides to shift one man to a secondary position several yards back, still within the hedgerow cover, but at a slightly different angle. It is an unofficial adjustment. Doctrine often emphasizes holding the forward edge. In the bocage, the forward edge can become a trap. The squad leader has learned this through observation and through what he has heard from other squads. A reverse position can see movement at the base of the hedge without exposing men on the skyline. He moves the man carefully, timing the crawl between bursts. The movement is slow. It feels like an admission of weakness, even though it is only a change of angle. The squad leader watches for any sign that higher authority is observing. There is no evidence of that. Yet the idea of being judged remains. In infantry units, men are expected to occupy ground. They are not expected to explain the ground's shape to those behind. The enemy's probe comes soon after. A small group moves along a hedge line to the squad's right, trying to find a seam. The squad leader cannot see them clearly, but he hears the change in sound. Leaves disturbed. A low call. A brief metallic strike. He signals the adjacent position if contact exists. No answer returns. Either the signal is missed or the adjacent unit is too occupied to respond. The squad leader makes another decision. He allocates scarce ammunition by roll. Rifles with good sight lines get a few extra clips. The automatic rifleman is given the last full magazine. Grenades are held back for close work, not thrown at distant shapes. It is not generous distribution. It is calculated. Every man understands the meaning without it being spoken. The first shots of the probe are traded at close range. A German soldier appears suddenly at a hedge opening. then disappears. The squad fires 2 controlled bursts and a rifle grenade that lands short and throws dirt. The enemy answers with a short machine gun burst that rips into branches. A man on the squad flinches hard enough to pull his head up. A round snaps past. He ducks again, breathing fast. A mortar bomb lands on the far side of the hedge, showering the ditch with debris. One man cries out. The squad leader crawls to him. A fragment has struck the man's upper arm. The wound bleeds steadily. It is not immediately fatal, but it is serious. The squad's medical supplies are limited. A field dressing is pressed on. The squad leader tightens it and ties it off. He tells the man to keep his arm elevated as much as he can in the ditch. Evacuation now is difficult. The lane behind is watched. The squad leader has to decide whether to risk moving the wounded man. This is where doctrine meets mud. Procedures exist for casualty evacuation. They presume routes and time. Here, a stretcher would have to cross a gap that has been registered by enemy fire. The squad leader signals back for a medic, if one can be spared. No immediate response arrives. The wounded man stays where he is, breathing in wet earth, listening to the sounds of others fighting around him. By late afternoon, strain becomes visible in the smallest behaviors. Men speak too loudly without noticing. A man curses when his rifle jams with mud. Another begins to doze and is jolted awake by a nearby shot. The squad leader keeps rotating watch, forcing brief rests in place. He cannot provide sleep. He can only ration fatigue, so it does not break the line at once. The runner sent back earlier returns as darkness approaches. He brings little. A few canteens, some rifle ammunition, no hot food, no replacement men. The runner's face shows that he has been moving through danger. He also brings a message: hold. Relief is delayed. The unit to the rear is dealing with traffic jams and shelling on the supply route. Engineers are clearing mines and wrecks. The squad leader reads the message by feel more than by light. Water is shared first. A man drinks, then passes the canteen without being told, and the squad leader ensures the wounded man is given enough to wet his mouth. The wounded man's face is gray, not with drama, but with shock and exhaustion. His dressing is soaked. There is no clean bandage left. The squad leader uses a strip of cloth from a spare shirt. It is a poor substitute. It is all that exists. The second night begins with the same quiet discipline. No fires, no smoking, no loose movement. Yet the enemy has learned the position. The mortar fire begins earlier, sporadic but persistent. The bombs land close enough to keep men pressed into mud. Each detonation is followed by a short silence in which men listen for footsteps. At one point, a voice calls in English from the darkness. It is a simple phrase, plausible as a trick. Don't shoot. The tone is wrong. The accent is wrong. The squad leader orders silence. No one answers. He knows that replying confirms the position and may guide a patrol. The voice calls again, then stops. Later, a flare rises somewhere down the line. It turns leaves silver and exposes the hedgerow's shape. The squad remains still. In the flare light, the squad leader sees how the men have become part of the earth. Faces streaked with mud, hands wrapped around wood and metal, eyes open wider than usual. The flare dies and darkness returns with the sound of rain. Near midnight, the enemy makes a stronger attempt. This is not a full attack by a company. It is a determined patrol with supporting fire. Machine gun bursts rake the hedge while 2 or 3 men rush a gap. The squad leader hears the rush and throws one grenade, carefully, low and short. So the explosion is muffled by the wet earth, but effective enough to stop movement. A cry follows, then a dragging sound. The squad holds fire after that moment, waiting for the second push that often follows. Instead, mortar fire returns, now walking behind the hedge. This is an effort to cut off reinforcement and to force the squad to pull back. A bomb lands close enough to blast mud into the wounded man's face. He coughs and struggles. The squad leader wipes his mouth and checks that the man is still conscious. A rifleman beside the squad leader begins to shake, not from fear alone, from cold and lack of sleep, from the body's failure to regulate itself. The squad leader presses his hand against the man's shoulder and keeps him grounded. He changes the man's task from watching forward to watching the rear, yet which requires less constant strain and gives the eyes something nearer to hold. By the second morning, the 48 hours are nearly complete, but relief is still uncertain. The squad leader has learned by now that time promised is time hoped for. He hears more movement behind, suggesting other units shifting. He hears vehicles at a distance, then silence as they stop, likely due to shelling or blocked lanes. The situation remains stuck. The operational problem becomes a quiet contest between the squad's condition and the enemy's patience. The enemy can continue to probe until a mistake is made. The squad's greatest danger is not being overwhelmed by force. It is an error caused by fatigue. A man standing at the wrong time, a rifle firing too early, a grenade dropped in panic. The squad leader focuses on preventing those errors, and he also confronts the tension between official doctrine and lived reality. Training emphasizes aggressive action, closing with the enemy, maintaining initiative. In this hedgerow, initiative is often the choice not to move. Aggression can be wasteful. A forward rush can become an isolated death. The squad leader does not reject doctrine. He adapts it to the ground and to the limited means available. A new message arrives late in the morning, brought by another runner. Higher command wants the position tightened. The message is brief and not entirely clear. It suggests that the squad's placement is not where the map says it should be. There is talk of a gap. There is worry about contact to the right. The squad leader reads the meaning behind the words. Someone is concerned about boundaries. Someone may be assigning blame in advance if the enemy slips through. The squad leader makes an unofficial decision that carries risk beyond bullets. He decides to re-establish visible contact to the right by sending 2 men through the hedge line to find the adjacent squad's actual location. This is dangerous. The lane between hedges can be swept by machine gun fire, yet the alternative is worse. An unknown gap invites infiltration. An infiltration invites a larger correction later. He selects 2 men who can move quietly and who have not shown impulsiveness under stress. He gives them a simple instruction. Move low. Do not engage unless necessary. Find the right-hand position. Return with a clear answer. He does not mention the possibility that they may not return. The 2 men crawl through a break and disappear. As minutes pass with no sound, the squad leader watches the hedgerow ahead, expecting the enemy to sense movement. A few shots crack from the right, then stop. The squad leader waits, controlling his own breathing. The 2 men return after what feels like an hour and is likely less. They have found the adjacent position. It is farther back than expected. Not a retreat in the sense of abandoning ground, but an adjustment similar to the squad leader's own. The right-hand unit has also been forced by mortars into a slightly different line. The boundary on the map no longer fits the hedgerow reality. This knowledge changes the squad leader's next action. He shifts one man to cover the seam where the right-hand unit cannot see. He does it without asking permission. He notes mentally how he will describe it later if questioned. It is not a withdrawal. It is coverage. It is maintaining the line by making the line real. Early afternoon brings the quiet peak of the holdout. The enemy's most serious attempt comes with coordinated fire. A machine gun from the front left pins the hedge. Mortars land behind and in front, boxing the squad into the ditch. Then movement appears at the hedge opening directly ahead. Several figures, low, moving fast. The squad leader delays firing by a fraction to confirm. The figures are too close for uncertainty now. He signals. The automatic rifle fires a controlled burst, sweeping the opening. Rifles add single shots aimed at shapes rather than at noise. A grenade is thrown into the gap and detonates with a dull thump. The enemy's movement breaks, not with a dramatic collapse, but with a sudden absence. One body remains partly visible, and then is dragged away. Return fire comes immediately. Bullets punch through leaves and strike the earth bank. A round hits a man's helmet with a sharp impact that leaves him stunned but alive. The helmet is dented. The man's eyes are wide. Then he blinks hard as if clearing water. The squad leader pulls him down and checks for blood. There is none, only shock. A mortar bomb lands closer than any before. The blast collapses part of the ditch wall. Earth falls onto legs. Men kick free and reseat themselves. The squad leader feels grit between teeth. A fragment tears into the pack of a rifleman, spilling damp contents into mud. A photograph floats for a moment before being pressed down by a boot. No one speaks about it. In the middle of this pressure, the wounded man's condition worsens. His bleeding is controlled but not stopped, and his skin is cold. The squad leader knows that leaving him here longer risks losing him without any enemy action at all. He signals back again, more urgently, for a medic or for stretcher help. The reply, when it comes, is a gesture from a rear position. Not now. Too much fire on the lane. The system is not refusing out of cruelty. It is constrained by the same terrain and the same threat. The squad leader makes the personal risk concrete. He decides to move the wounded man during a lull that follows the enemy's failed push. It is an unofficial choice, not because evacuation is forbidden, but because it will pull two men from the line and expose them. He judges that the enemy is unlikely to mount another immediate rush after being checked. He also knows that waiting for perfect conditions means waiting until it is too late. Yet he selects one helper. Together, they lift the wounded man by shoulders and belt, half carrying him through the ditch and into a narrow, covered route behind the hedge. They move in short bursts, stopping when a machine gun rattles. When they reach a point where the hedge turns, they meet a platoon medic who has been trying to reach them for hours. The medic's face shows the strain of moving in this environment. He takes over with practiced hands, applying a better bandage, checking for shock, and directing the casualty further back toward a collection point. The squad leader returns to the line with mud on his sleeves and a quiet anger that he does not express. Not anger at the medic, not anger at the men. Anger at the narrowness of the system's options. So much depends on a lane not being swept. So much depends on a vehicle not being stuck. So much depends on messages being carried by men crawling in water. With the wounded man gone, the squad's strength is reduced. The positions feel thinner. The squad leader adjusts again, bringing men closer together to cover the most likely approaches. He accepts that some angles will remain uncovered. He watches for infiltration rather than trying to dominate every field. It is a defensive posture shaped by necessity. Late afternoon brings an unexpected form of pushback. A senior non-commissioned leader from the platoon crawls up, bringing a new order. The order demands that the squad reoccupy the forward hedge line fully and show presence. The words suggest that someone behind believes the squad has become too cautious. The message is not shouted, when it is delivered in the same calm tone as any other instruction. That calm makes it heavier. The squad leader does not argue openly. Arguments in the ditch waste time and erode trust. He acknowledges the order with a nod. Then he translates it into practical action that will not ruin the squad. He directs 2 men to shift forward by a few feet, just enough to create the appearance of occupying the forward edge, while keeping most of the firing and observation from safer angles. It is a compromise. It is also a risk. If the enemy fires again, the forward men will pay first. The forward adjustment is made. A man's sleeve catches on thorn. He freezes and gently frees it. Another settles his rifle into a new slot and breathes slowly. The squad leader watches them and waits for the enemy's response. The enemy does respond, though not immediately. A sniper shot cracks from the far hedge and strikes the forward edge, close to where one man's head had been. The man pulls back instinctively. The squad leader signals him to stay low, but keep watching. The threat is clear. Presence can attract fire. This is what the squad leader had feared. The demand to show can cost more than it gains. As the second evening approaches, the 48 hours are nearly complete. The squad has held the hedgerow through probes, mortar fire, and exhaust. They have done it by discipline, by adaptation, and by refusing to be drawn into wasteful movement. They have also done it by accepting the limits of supply and communication. Their world has been a strip of earth and leaves. The larger war exists around them as sound and pressure. Its relief finally comes not as a dramatic arrival, but as a gradual change. Men from another squad begin to appear in the lane behind, moving in the same low, cautious manner. They bring extra ammunition and water. They bring word that the platoon is reorganizing for a renewed push. The squad leader is told to prepare to hand over sectors. The handover is practical and brief. Angles are indicated by pointing. Danger points are shown tapping the earth where bullets struck. The squad leader explains where the enemy patrol came the first night. He points to the gap that drew fire. He describes the mortar pattern that tended to walk along the hedge base. He does not exaggerate. He does not dramatize. He gives the kind of information that keeps another man alive. As the relief squad settles in, the original squad withdraws a short distance to a rear hedge. The men move stiffly. Their knees feel older than they are. Hands that held rifles for 2 days now shake when asked to unbuckle straps. Mud has dried in layers and cracked. The smell of wet earth clings to skin. In the rear, there is no immediate rest in the sense civilians imagine. There is accounting first. Names are checked. Ammunition usage is noted if someone remembers. The squad leader reports 1 wounded evacuated and 1 man stunned by helmet impact. He reports that contact to the right had shifted and that the seam was covered. A clerk or platoon leader writes it down, perhaps in pencil, perhaps on paper that will later be rewritten. Food arrives later than promised, and it is still cold. Men eat anyway. They eat because the body demands it. But they eat because it is something that can be done without thought. A man falls asleep with food in his hand and wakes when it drops into mud. No one laughs. Institutional response to such a holdout is usually quiet. It may appear as a single line in an after-action report. Position held. It may be reduced to a grid reference and a time. The details that mattered most to the men are rarely captured. The decision not to fire at a test burst. The choice to move one man back for a safer angle. The calculated distribution of ammunition. The compromise made to satisfy an order while avoiding needless exposure. There may be no decoration. There may be no public story. Not because the work was unimportant, because the work was common. In Normandy's hedgerow,